Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Sorrell, and as we are now officially only 14 weeks away from the release of, I figured in these last 14 weeks before the release, it would be fun to tell you a little bit of my journey. So, my journey as a writer starts fairly similar to everybody else's, only I didn't actually realize this until many, many years later. Primarily so, only about 3 years ago I discovered this. But as I was packing to move to America, I discovered a report card. And on that report card, it emphasized my love of writing. Now, this would have only been when I was around 6 or 7. And the fact that despite my very, very lack of skill in terms of spelling anything, I fell in love with creating worlds and telling stories. And it is something that, looking back, it makes a lot of sense. There was a long while where I couldn't really pinpoint the moment I actually liked writing. I couldn't pinpoint the moment that I fell in love with it. Could it have been the first draft I ever wrote? No, not really, because I was writing before that. I mean, my earliest memories of me writing was actually of basically fan fiction. And said fan fiction was Doctor Who stories. But to know that I have had this, for this to be dormant in me for the better part of 2 decades, in actual fact, from when this journey is starting right now, from scratch, it has been about 2 decades in the making, which is kind of bizarre and kind of wild to think about. But in actual fact, I would say that my first ever decision to write something would have been around the age of 15 or 16. So at this age, in the UK, I was nearing the end of my high school years. And during my final year, I was tasked with writing a creative story. I did so, and while I enjoyed it, it wasn't something that I thought I'd be any good at overall, because as I said earlier, I couldn't spell. I was terrible at spelling. I really was. Even the easiest stuff. I actually found it easier spelling the more difficult parts than I did spelling the easiest stuff. So it got to the point where I handed in this creative story during my English class when my teacher at the time sat me down and was like, "Hey, can you stay after school for a bit?" And obviously, yeah, sure, like that's not a problem. And she sat me down and she gave me a dictionary. And, well, obviously dictionaries aren't very revolutionary. She sat me down and said, "I want to give you a brilliant grade for this. I just can't because of your spelling. Now, I cannot tell you the spellings, but I'm going to leave this here. Anything that you're unsure of, check the spelling." And that essay, after I spent a couple of hours fixing all the spelling mistakes, that essay, that story became my highest grade in the entirety of English. And at that moment, I realized that your worth as a storyteller doesn't necessarily revolve around perfection. And again, that has become my mantra ever since. It's like progress, not perfection. I know I'm terrible at spelling. You should see my first drafts. Like, there's a reason why I need to use spell check a lot. But that doesn't detract away from the fact that I have a gift and I love the act of writing stories. I love the act of telling stories. And so it wouldn't be until maybe a year later when I sat down and I was like, why not? Why can't I write a novel? Like, why can't I write a story? Why can't I write a novel? What's stopping me? I mean, if it's the spelling, guess what? Laptops exist. Spell check exists. There's no reason why I should doubt myself anymore. There's no reason why I should put down a pencil just because I struggle with one aspect, which, for the most part, is probably the tiniest element of writing a story. Yes, spelling matters in terms of like grammar and whatnot in the final product, but it doesn't matter when you first put pencil to page. And so, after I left high school, I came up with the idea of this book called, and it was a young YA thriller, like dystopian. It was written around the same time as like the Hunger Games and stuff like that came out. But I wrote this 80,000 word manuscript. And this manuscript wasn't perfect. In fact, if I ever do publish it, there's going to have to be extensive rewrites. I already know that. But that act of me sitting down and writing this entire manuscript by myself, with nobody else knowing that I was even doing it, that to me was power. And that to me was the first time I truly understood who I was meant to be. And without realizing it in that moment, writing that first draft, fall in love with the characters, the drama, but just having that escapism, it changed my life forever. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was the reason I would get into university. It was the reason why I fell in love with writing stories. It was the reason why, when I was at my lowest point, I wrote. And as of right now, me putting that pen to paper is the reason why this book exists. And I will always feel emotional after all of those years of never understanding who I was, what I wanted to be. I'd found my purpose. I don't know where this journey is going to go. I really don't. It can go left, right, up, down. And as far as I know, I can publish so many things and not have anything left. And not sell a single copy. I can't guarantee anything. But at the end of the day, that one act changed my life. And with 14 weeks to go, I will always be grateful for the ballsy kid that sat down and wrote despite all of his flaws. I am so proud of him, and I'm so proud of who I've become since. So, 14 weeks to go, 7/2/26. That's the official release date. Cover will come when it's ready. Manuscript is finished. And all I can say is, I look forward to you all joining me on this journey.